Welcome, Taurus. It's August 24th of 2015. I'm a year behind myself. How are you? I hope you're well. It's that time of the month again where I take a look at your horoscope. If you haven't looked at the introduction, do take a look at it. It speaks about the retrograde motion of Venus this month, which is a fairly significant transit because for you right now, Venus and this apparent reverse motion is happening in your fourth sector, that fourth house of your horoscope, which has to do with your domestic life, your family life. And on top of that, we see the Sun, Mercury and Jupiter also hanging around in that area. So the domestic issues will be first and foremost on your mind this month. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The first of the month, we see the full moon in your career sector. So let's punctuate what I just said there with that full moon. For you, the full moon is relating to the third house of your horoscope. You know, third house has a lot to do with courage, value, doing something you might not ordinarily want to do. It's in the 10th house and it's full. So this obviously means the power of the moon to give its results is pretty significant, and it's taking place in, I'm just having a look over there at my charts, it's taking place in that sign of Aquarius, which for you, it's quite unusual. A lot of people say, well, the Taurian is very, very staid and secure and conservative, and that's not always the case, especially in work. And here we see where if you are conservative, you likely maybe this month to do something a little bit different. And you could get emotionally very, very passionate about that because the moon is an emotional sort of planet. The full moon brings with it, unfortunately, some opposition to those other planets in the fourth house. The fourth house is opposite this 10th house. And when we see, for example, this opposition to Mercury and Jupiter and Venus, Jupiter, for example, creates a bit of an excessive quality, especially if it's what we call this hard aspect or the opposition. So that's why I said you may want to take a gamble this month. You may want to do something different in your work, but are you sure you're not doing it on a knee-jerk reaction? Be careful about that. Think things through sufficiently before actually diving into the deep end. In any case, what I was going to say earlier was that this particular transit of Venus, the retrogression, and for you, this is your ruling planet. So for you, this is actually a good thing to be happening. The retrograde planet empowers the person, and interestingly we look for themes month by month, which is why along with that full moon, having the ruling planet Venus in that reverse motion, empowering it, means you're feeling pretty confident overall. Jupiter, let's have a look here. Mercury will exit this fourth sector of your horoscope. So you're thinking a lot about family now. There's a lot of activity in that area up until the 8th, where it is it the 8th? Let me just have a look here. Mercury moves out here exactly on the 8th into the 5th house of romance and love affairs. Jupiter will exit, and this is a very, very important transit for you, on the 12th. Let's just hold with that for the time being, because Jupiter is not considered so good for your sun sign, but nevertheless it has its positive qualities, and it does naturally tend to empower those areas of the horoscope that it's transiting into. So this 5th house is your love affairs. It's children, for those of you that are not pregnant or still awaiting that, motherhood stage of your life. This is a time when the transit of Jupiter can give you some fulfilling results in that sense. If not your own children, you'll start to think about children. You can be drawn to children. And also, in some of my previous discussions, I talked about how this fifth house has to do with your inner child, that creative, spontaneous part of your nature, which can be more than activated under this transit. So that's excellent for your creativity. Later in the month as well, the sun will exit this fourth house and move into that area. So I'm seeing the first half of the month, first week, then maybe up till this 12th to 14th, when Jupiter moves out, more focused and family oriented. Fourth house too, believe it or not, in contrast to what Western astrologers normally believe, fourth house is education. It's also peace of mind. There's a lot going on within yourself. So this is not just an outer transit. This can relate to the types of activities you perform on an internal level that can bring resolution within yourself. What is it that's bothering you? What is it that's really pissing you off? This could have to do with your family circumstance, the environment in which you live, the people you're living with. Are they dominating you? Are they controlling you? They're the sorts of questions. And we see another important transit there, which happens on the 9th, to be precise. Just a day after the transit of Mercury out of here, just when you think everything's ready to settle down, Mars, that combative planet, moves into this fourth sector. Now, Mars for you is also a problematic planet. It rules your relationships, but it also rules the 12th house of losses, compassionate work, low-key activities, sleep, dreams. It is a spiritual planet for you. So it moves into this fourth house just as Mercury has moved out. So I don't think you're going to be completely free of the effects or the dominance of this part of your life throughout the month of August. And you need to be careful of that if you've been repressing a lot of feelings. Mars's action is to really explode that, bring it to the fore. Perhaps that's what you need. Perhaps you need to blow the lid off some issue that's going on in your family. This may also relate to your education, as I was saying. Fourth house has to do with, what it is you can understand. It is one of the spiritual houses as well, along with the 8th and the 12th house. So most definitely we see some pretty important things here. That retrograde Venus is going to continue up until probably 2nd or even 3rd week of September, because the effects aren't fully digested until it's completely moved forward. So you may be reappraising your situation at home. You may be considering educational studies. You may be considering changing some of those studies if that's what you've been doing over the past few months or years. I said also that later I would talk to you about the impact of the new moon. And the new moon also occurs here in your fourth house. So we can't escape the fact that this is the dominant theme for the month. And that occurs on the 14th, just after Jupiter exits here. So just as planets are leaving this area, you've got others that are sort of replacing them. It's like a relay, isn't it? So you probably won't be able to resolve a lot of this stuff, I'm saying, till the early part of September, which we'll talk about next month. I did say your career should take a step up because of the full moon. Finances, which are dominated by Mercury, are probably more likely to be accentuated and positive when it moves to the 5th house. It's not too bad in this 4th house. Again, that's probably thinking about real estate, how you can maybe sell your car, buy a new car. There's all the fixed assets that are uppermost in your mind. But taking a gamble, being strong, stepping out of the square, that seems to be the theme this month. And I hope we can help you a little bit more in terms of detail at the website astrology.com.au, where you can take a look at the transit by transit, planet by planet movement day by day. It's a little bit more of a detailed analysis. This, of course, is just a synopsis, a thematic view of what's likely to happen in the next month. And I hope you'll join me again next month. Take care. Look forward to your company then. Bye-bye.